Hi, Calvin Castine here. Gordy Little is busy at St. Alexander, so I've grabbed a microphone. I don't get a chance very often to grab that mic away from Gordy, but we've taken this opportunity. I put Judy Castine on the camera, and we're on board the Juniper, and we're on our way to Crab Island. And I've been told this gentleman right here knows everything that we're about to do. What's your name, young fella?
John Prue.
John, which group are you with?
American Legion, Post 20.
Post 20, I think I've heard of them.
I think so.
Are you the commander? Or?
Yes, I'm commander.
Congratulations. It must be an honor to be commander of Post 20.
It is.
So is Post 20 the lead agent in what we're going to do today at Crab Island?
As far as I know.
As far as you know. So what preparations have you taken personally?
None, just to come on the boat.
Just to come on the boat. Any idea what's going to be transpiring
Well,
out
I
there?
know where we're going, what they're going to do out there.
We're going to do a memorial service on Crab Island to the soldiers who died in the Battle of Plattsburgh.
Yep.
Now, they told me you weren't very good at dates, but could you tell me what year the Battle of Plattsburgh, the War of 1812 started?
1812.
Very good. See? And your friends thought you didn't know much about dates.
Well, they're not too smart.
You might be in trouble here later, John. All right, is there anybody in particular that we should talk to that's going to be leading the color guard or anything?
Joe Gear is head
Joe
of the
Gear?
color guard. Yep.
All right, maybe we'll look for Joe Gear. Anything else you'd like to tell us?
Just have a good time.
All right, we will. Thanks. We've moved down to Juniper a little bit, and we're talking now with a man who's been on Hometown Cable several times, Warren Manor. Warren, what are you here today as? You wear so many hats, it's hard to keep track.
I'm the Clinton County American Legion Commander. I took that title in June, just before we went to the department convention down in Binghamton. I was elected as the county commander.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, Battle of Plattsburgh Day, was that a bit of a coup for the North Country of having the state recognize the Battle of Plattsburgh Day?
Yes, it's long, long overdue. If it hadn't been for the victory of the Battle of Plattsburgh, we would probably be living under a British flag now. Very fortunately.
Or a Canadian flag.
Or a Canadian flag. Very fortunately that Commodore Thomas McDonough, with the Saratoga, took on the confiance with George Downey, and we whipped them right out here in Plattsburgh Bay, and that was the birth of a great nation.
I think the thing that amazes me most about that victory is the age of Commodore McDonough.
Beautiful. If you read the background of Commodore McDonough, he started very young, became a very, very knowledgeable in the sea and the actions of the sea and the works of the sea, and I think that he used that knowledge against the British in the Battle of Plattsburgh.
And I think we've heard a couple times this weekend that part of the British problem was they probably weren't too used to fighting inland like this here. They were used to out in the open seas, probably.
They were open sea sailors. They were high water men. Where they fought a complete fleet that was at anchor. We were at anchor when they came in, and we never got underway. So they weren't used to those tactics, and I think maybe they might have been a little infiltration too. We might have had a little ups on them. If you read and listen about the two young lieutenants who were the New York regiment stationed out just west or just north of here near Chazy, who donned British coats and British hats and went in behind the lines, got their battle maneuvers and whatnot, and then at Chazy Landing on September 5th, kicked the tar out of them because they knew what their movements were. So I think McDonough might have had a little bit of that knowledge behind time too.
Yeah, every year we seem to find out a little bit more, and when David Fitzens mentioned that at the ceremony at Riverside Cemetery, I think a lot of people found that very interesting.
I think as time goes on and we rewrite, because we must rewrite the history books, the significance of the Battle of Plattsburgh and the entire era around here is not published enough in the history books, but I think as time goes on and we rewrite the history books, you will see the significance of the Battle of Plattsburgh and the birth of a new nation.
And I think most of us, the average person on the street, is now able to understand the Battle of Valcour and the Battle of Plattsburgh, and that there are two separate wars. Although last night when I was listening to a local TV station, the 6 o'clock news said the Battle of Plattsburgh won the war, run the American Revolution.
Revolution, yeah, I heard that slip on TV too. One of the major bloops of the year, yeah. But you know, we're going to see more and more as time goes on, more and more the significance of the Battle of Plattsburgh, and you know, I can't. And with Chris Ortloff's new project, Vision 2014, I'm certain we'll soon have an interpretive center second to none. People can come in here, they can learn about the history of this area, not only of the Battle of Plattsburgh, from right on from the American Revolution on up to the present day of the Cold War, Vietnam, World War II, Korea. It'll all be there, and I got to praise Chris for his efforts.
A man who has worked so hard for the veterans over the years, that must be really exciting for you.
It is. It's very much exciting, and not only with the creation of the interpretive center, is someday to have the Plattsburgh Barracks Veterans National Memorial Cemetery here also, so that some of our local heroes can be buried in a national cemetery.
Well, one of the things I like about this, Warren, is in attending the Riverside Cemetery ceremony, like for the second year, and even today, we're not just recognizing the American troops, but we're recognizing that people on the other side suffered losses too.
They suffered losses, and we honor those people. They gave for a cause just as we gave for a cause. And we can't just say, well, they lost the war, so let's forget them. No, they were honorable, justified in the cause that they were fighting for. Unfortunately, our cause was greater.
I'll let it go with that. Thanks, Warren.
Thank you, Cal.
We're talking now with a local historian, Mr. Terrence Gilroy from Denimora. Terrence, there's a flower in your hat. Do you know that?
Yep, put it there a couple months ago.
It looks like a daisy. What's the significance of that?
Prisoners of war, American prisoners of war. I forget where I picked this up, down Florida someplace.
You get around in your historical and...
Well, this North Country is so loaded with historical stuff, you don't have to go too far. You're right in your backyard. We're so lucky to have what we have, and that's the thing with this is it has increased since we started. This is our 15th year on this with the County Legion and with the Battle of Plattsburgh Committee from the city, which has taken over and really put a lot into this. And they got a lot of real dedicated individuals that are willing to work on it, and I think it's going to continue to grow with this type of leadership.
So you're telling me that this ceremony we're about to partake in here at Crab Island has been going on for 15 years?
1984, we started it. I went to the Legion meeting in Russell's Point in 83, and I suggested we do something about the Battle of Plattsburgh, and we went to Florida. I come back, I said, what'd you do? Well, what do you want to do? Well, let's go. So we come down and saw Frank, and he'd been helping us ever since. He's done a lot.
Every region has their assets, and I think Captain Frank Papps and the Juniper is a tremendous asset to the North Country, underappreciated.
Yep, I have to agree with you 100%. They've done a lot here, and he's a very dedicated individual to help in the community in any way that he can. Frank is a great supporter of these things. Yep.
He's been a mover behind the scenes, and literally a mover this week. He went and grabbed that tree that was in the Saranac River and moved that out of the way so that the bateau could get up for the reenactment.
Yeah. He's a very, very dedicated individual. Yeah, he's certainly one in a million, and we're lucky to have him. I see Gordy's coming.
Gordy's coming.
Yeah, there he is with a green shirt on.
Looks like
laid the dollar short.
He wasn't sure if he was going to be here. Looks like I'm going to lose.
There he is.
Grab, look out.
Don't know how happy you are here. We've been waiting for you.
Looks like I've lost the microphone as Gordy shakes hands with Bill Reed there.
One thing I can't do, and that is run that thing. Hi, Judy.
We're going to hand the microphone over to Gordy, but in the meantime, Terrence, thanks for chatting with us. Always a pleasure to see you.
Good to see you, fellas. You do a good job. Thank you for keeping things going.
Yeah, I'm here. Calvin said you can come aboard if you can get away. I've been in a pig roast all day at St. Alexander's in Morrisonville, a combination family day and pig roast, and we had a great time. And I told the father, well, we're going on the Juniper for a very important trip to Crab Island. What a fitting way to end just an awesome celebration of the Battle of Plattsburgh weekend in Plattsburgh. We're recording this at 5 o'clock on the 12th day of September 1999, and I must congratulate not only the people that helped to put this celebration together, but all the people in this area and visitors to the North Country who have made this celebration a tremendous success. I have standing next to me my good friend, Lynn Wilkie. How are you, Lynn?
Fine, fine.
Great to have you here today, and we know why. You're going to blow taps.
Yeah.
Tell me about it.
Taps, well, it was on the Civil War battlefield that it was invented by Danny Butterfield. And it's an old show, and that's the one I can play, and not too many people can play it anymore. So I can always do a good job on taps, even if I don't.
How many times have you done it?
Oh Lord, I don't know.
Hundreds and hundreds?
Yeah, all over the country. Out west with the Indian Wars, here as the Sons of Union veterans of the Civil War, and all the other times I've done it here on board the boat.
What uniform do you have on right now?
The uniform right now is 1874, and I am a member of the Sons of Union Veterans of the Civil War, which is a unit composed of members, male members that have their ancestors who fought in the Civil War. And my great-great-grandfather was at Harper's Ferry as a second lieutenant. And so I have the uniform on, and actually it's not the War of 1812, but the members that are buried out here of the military, those members were the ancestors of the Civil War and some of the veterans that are here now. So I guess I can get away with this uniform.
And you've become a real student, have you, of a lot of the wars, especially the Civil War era?
Civil War and mainly the Indian Wars out west. George Armstrong Custer and his group.
That battle, how many times have you been out there?
Only in Montana, only about 6 times.
Most of us have never been there.
My mother's an adopted Lakota Sioux. And so I'm on the other. My grandfather served in the National Guard under Charlie Rowe, who was his second lieutenant, Charlie Rowe, who was the first one that was fired upon by the Indians after they killed Custer.
We don't have enough time in this program to mention even 1/10 of the things this guy has done in his lifetime, but I would be very remiss if I left this boat today without telling you that he touched thousands and thousands of lives as the music director at Peru High School for how many years, Lynn?
33.
For 33 years. You know, if you just gave music lessons to 2 kids who went on to enjoy music the rest of their lives, it would be worthwhile. But I know how pleased you are when some of those kids actually go on to make music for a living.
More important are the people that didn't go on but still enjoy music. That was the whole purpose of teaching. For their later lives, they enjoyed it. They don't have to go out and play like Rocky Blake and that crew. They can be farm boys or mechanics, and I had one of them come up to me and say, Mr. Wilkie, it was a garage mechanic, did you hear Aida last Saturday? And I said, yeah. He says, I remember when you taught it. So that's the real joy of teaching.
Many years ago, when I was in the radio business, Lynn would bring me the carefully edited tapes at Christmas time of the concert.
Bad notes are out of them.
Taking out all the bad notes, and there were some just delicious times. When I think of all those kids and all those parents, and everybody gets involved in a town the size of Peru, and that's what you gotta love about it.
That's right, it's a great town.
You know, something else that you've been very much involved in, and we haven't discussed it a lot, either on the radio or here on television, and that is your love for ham radio.
That's right. I worked the biathlon race. I was the cleanup man with a flashing yellow light on the car. And ham radio is just about the greatest thing that you can get involved with. I talk all over the world to everybody. Furthest was a mountain climber, Swiss mountain climber on the Tibetan out near Mount Everest. And he sounded like he was being powered by yak power. But I got him, and it's fun.
Ham radio operation is a great deal of fun. And one other thing I should mention before we leave is Lynn is a wonderful musician himself. He loves to play the organ, has an interest and a knowledge of most of the world's great organs, and I find that fascinating.
Yes, I love organ music. I've loved it ever since I was little. And one of the honors coming to me in the next year, the year 2000, will be to play for the National Convention of the Little Bighorn Associates that are custody historians at West Point on the organ. Not the big one, but the one in the chapel. But just playing next to the largest organ in the world is something.
Wow, and when is that coming out?
It's July 21st, the year 2000. I almost said 19.
I still don't know what we're going to call that decade. Have you decided, Calvin? We're going to call it the Zeros or the Big Double Naught?
That's me. Not.
I love it. Lynn Wilkie, thanks so much for being with us here today, and thanks so much for everything you stand for.
Well, thank you very much.
I can't wait to hear him play taps again. Do you need this thing back?
No, I don't.
All right.
I might. Somebody might.
You never know.
You never know. Somebody might say, "What the are you doing in that great uniform?"
I love it. Thanks again, Lynn Wilkie.
It's the only uniform I have.
Oh, it is? And it still fits, right?
No.
I love it.
I'm getting worse and worse.
Thanks, Lynn. We may not be standing in the wake of the Juniper, but we're in a good spot where we can smell the diesel fumes, I'll tell you that. We've been aboard this ship many times before, and we've had a lot of fun. Kit Booth, this is a great way to end a tremendously successful week. How do you feel about it?
Wonderful, wonderful. I'm still living on adrenaline. I haven't had anything to eat today, but it's just been a wonderful weekend. The Lord has blessed us with a wonderful weather. I mean, for the last 4 or 5 days, we had a little tough start on Tuesday when we put that bateau in the rain, but from then on it's just been great.
You know what I said? When we put that bateau in and it was raining that hard, it helped us to remember the occasion even more. And as you know, Calvin and I did a show that was almost an hour and a half there, and I viewed it the other night at home, and it turned out beautifully well. Wait till you see it. You'll be very impressed. That was a great day.
Oh, it was a great day. I'm very proud of my son and the crew that put together the bateau, and they got it in the water. It floated beautifully. They rowed it over to the marina in 25 minutes. It rode like a dream. They fought it in the battle twice this weekend. My son, even Chris, shot the cannon this afternoon off of it.
Oh, he did?
Oh, yeah. He was the guy that touched off the cannon several times during the battle.
I love it. I must say that yesterday, of course, as we're recording this on the 12th day of September, yesterday would have been the 11th, and the reenactments yesterday were marvelous.
Weren't they? We had twice as many reenactors as we had last year. We had 2 cannons last year. This year we fired 9 cannons, and we had a lot of camp followers. We had about 80 people involved this year. Last year was around 30.
I think people who looked in today's Press Republican get an idea of the panoramic view of the people who were there watching yesterday.
Oh, it was a wonderful spread. And the fireworks on Friday night was spectacular. That picture in the press on Saturday morning, I mean, it was a dream picture, the whole thing.
My wife took a look at the picture and she said, how did they do that?
They have a fisheye lens. I think that's what they call it.
It was like the picture that was taken when your granddaughter broke the bottle of champagne. And we got it on tape. Your wife thought it was you that said it, but it was Chris that said...
it was her father that said it, yeah.
It was Chris that said, don't break the bottle. Don't swing it hard enough to break the bottle.
The important thing is don't break the bottle, right. And boy, they broke it. They broke it in good shape.
That was just a great day. And while we're here, I do want to give a special thanks to all the media that came here to cover these events. All the media did just a spectacular job. The network television sets, Calvin does a great job with Hometown Cable. We got to as many events as we could, and if people didn't know about this battle after watching television or reading the paper, they had to be in a cocoon somewhere.
That's right. No, they did know about it, and you begin to hear people talking about the battle with some knowledge about what was going on, and that's the purpose of what we're doing, to educate the public and to make them, first of all, to educate them. Second of all, let's have a good time while we're doing it. And I think we've done both this weekend. I'm tremendously proud of the committee that put it together and of all the participants who helped to make it a real thing.
I remember last year when we were standing almost in this same spot, bringing the anchor up on Battle of Plattsburgh Day in the early morning hours of September 11th, and your voice was just about over the other side of the hill.
Oh, right. I'd lost it by then, hadn't I? Yeah. I want to point, you mentioned that, the anchor next weekend, just 1 week from this battle weekend, the Basin Harbor Marine Museum, where our anchor is now being preserved, are going to host Clinton County Days. And that means that everybody from Clinton County goes free. So we hope you'll go over, see your anchor, pat it on the shoulder and say, we'll see you back in Plattsburgh next year.
One of the highlights of launching that bateau last week in the rain was the fact that the Lake Champlain Maritime Museum at Basin Harbor sent a representative over to be there. And he was a very colorful guy. And during the filming, I asked him to pick up his sweatshirt, and he did. And he had a T-shirt with the exact inscription from the anchor.
Oh, really?
And they're selling them over there.
Oh.
And it's kind of neat. I was kind of wishing they would have sold some over here on this side of the lake this weekend.
Well, you can go over next week and get in for free and buy a T-shirt.
I want people to know that I was a late comer on the boat today because I had another function, but Calvin got it started by interviewing people. This boat has got just about as many people as they allow, and maybe about 7 more.
It looks like a capacity crowd, which it was last year too. Yeah, everybody is interested in seeing this final act for the weekend, and we're all delighted to be here.
Let's, while we have a moment, let's let our viewers know again why this trip over to Crab Island is so significant.
Well, you know that after the battle, the wounded and the sick were taken to Crab Island, and many of them died and were buried there at Crab Island. So it's a national historic site. There's a monument there. Unfortunately, they don't know exactly where the people are buried. Probably most of the remains are gone by now, but the island is a shrine for that reason, because the people who died in the battle are buried there.
We've taken the boat over there on this day for the last few years and had very powerful moments together. Do we have bagpipers on board today?
You're asking a question. I haven't looked around to see.
I haven't
if they're
seen
here.
or heard them yet.
I thought they were going to be here, but I haven't seen them.
But I know that
we have a firing squad. We have lots of wonderful veterans from the American Legion, veterans of foreign wars, and the Vietnam veterans who are all represented here. And we're about ready to get started with that program.
Kit Booth, thanks again for everything you've done. I'm so much delighted to be a part of it.
Oh, so am I. Thank you.
See, I got you.
Start with our county chaplain and our county commander with an opening prayer. Chaplain Drew. Let us pray. Almighty God, giver of all valor, we thank Thee for the opportunity we abide in our land. For Thy guidance, the hour of peril, and Thy tender love in times of need. Help us to remember with reverence the valor and devotion of our departed comrades, not only those whose bodies consecrate our country's soil, but also those who sleep beyond the sea, and those others whose resting place will not be known until that last day when the deep will have given up its dead. For God, teach us to honor them by ever cherishing the ideas for which they fought. Keep us steadfast in the cause of human rights and liberty, of law and order, and true Americans. Give us the power to see and the will to do right. Grant that the American Legion deserve the highest the almost visible presence of those who have gone before us. We honor the memory of those who gave their lives in the sacrifice of our country, and those others who have dropped their burdens by the wayside of life and are gone to the eternal place. May the ceremonies of today deepen your reverence for our dead. Let us renew our pledge of loyalty to our country and its flag. Let us resolve by the words and deeds to emphasize the privilege, duty, and patriotism.
You're all right, but you better get down on your knees when they shoot.
Now, as the American, I pledge allegiance to the flag by Special Sergeant John Bacon. I pledge allegiance
To
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Please remain standing. Lena Kelly will now sing the national anthem. Please join.
Squad, change hut. Present on. Order, home.
Lita, you and this time.
Red, rest.
Please join me in singing America the Beautiful. The day is as beautiful as the sun.
Take him. She don't want to come out of there? It's going to be an awful blast.
Maybe I should take your suggestion.
Who serve in passion's strength.
listen when he tells us to fire in case I don't hear it.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Lee. Roll call of deceased veterans by Captain Frank Thompson. 185 years ago today, these men gave their lives to give us the country that we enjoy today. Thomas Ainwright, John Atkinson, Daniel Bennett, William Brickell, Benjamin Burrow, Thomas Butler, James Carlisle, Rogers Carter, John Coleman, Joseph Couch, Abram Davis, James Day, John Fisher, Peter Gamble, Thomas Gill, James Hale, Peter Hansen, John Heath, Ebenezer Johnson, Henry Johnson, Peter Johnson, Jacob Laraway, Thomas Lewis, Jacob Lindman, Thomas Maloney, Randall McDonald, Edward Moore, Perkins Moore, Andrew Nelson, James Norbury, Andre Parmalee, Peter Post, John Rivero, Joseph Rowe, John Selleck, John Sharp, John Smart, Arthur Smith, Samuel Smith, John Stansberry, Thomas Stebbins, Robert Stratton, Diedrich Fink, Peter Vandermeer, John Wallace, John White, Jerome Williams, Mace Wilson, James Winship, John Wood, and William S. Weiler. Thank you, Captain. Salute to the deceased veterans, Sir L. Woodward Post 1623 Lime Mountain, and other North Country veterans groups. Captain?
Squad, change hut. Prepare to fire. Unlock. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Aim. Fire. Present. Horn. Order. Horn. Red. Rest.
Today's taps was played by Lynn H. Wilkie of the New York State Department of the Sons of the Union Veterans of the Civil War. This congressionally chartered organization is made up of men who trace their ancestries to men who fought for their country in the War of Rebellion. The purpose of this group is to honor and protect the graves and monuments of the men who served their country. Many of the men who are buried on this island were ancestors of these later soldiers. Thank you, Lynn. Please join Lita in God Bless America.
Bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountain, to the prairie, to the ocean, white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet
Thank you, Lita. Benediction will be now by County Chaplain Joe here.
Eternal God, we thank thee for this hallowed soil. Make us worthy, we pray thee, to guide our heritage and pride through all the years to come. In memory of those our dead, they were pledged to our beloved land, the same service and the same devotion. And, O Lord, secure to us evermore the peace for which our comrades died. Amen. Captain Pulaski, dismiss your detail.
Squad, change, hut, fall out.
So ends a very impressive ceremony aboard the Juniper on the 12th day of September. We're in the afternoon now. It's 22 minutes before 6 o'clock on just an extremely beautiful day. For those of you who haven't been aboard the Juniper for this ceremony in the past, I hope you have enjoyed it being with us here today through the camera of videographer Galvin Castine on Hometown Cable. It's always a profound experience to me, not only to honor those people who were killed in our previous wars, but to see various representatives of the legions and other service organizations on board to join with us in this honor. And I am an unabashed patriot, as my friends know, and I almost always shed a tear when we sing the national anthem, when we sing America the Beautiful, and many of the other songs that were sung here today. To see these patriots in uniform, standing tall, saluting the flag, and then firing their salutes, remind me of all the other memorial services I've attended down through the years. Each one as good as the last. As you see, the reenactors are firing off the stern of the ship. Craig Russell and his friends in period uniforms, they've been extremely active throughout this weekend. I talked to one of the reenactors aside. I said, "How was it?" He said, "Wonderful, and my feet hurt." Standing on their feet for so many hours for such a good cause. I think no one associated with this Battle of Plattsburgh weekend is without high praise for everybody involved, but it wasn't just one person. It wasn't just Kit Booth. It wasn't just the reenactors. It wasn't just the folks who came to watch, but it was a combination of all of the above. And the good Lord shone down on us with just spectacular weather for most of it. It's not how much money was made, but it's how much emotion was brought together from that day all those years ago to this day, and looking forward with a vision to 2014 for all the things you've heard us talk about so many times, to make mention of the fact that it will be 200 years at that time since the Battle of Plattsburgh began. You heard Captain Frank, who read the roll call of all those killed during the Battle of Plattsburgh, who were buried right over there on Crab Island. For those of you who may not be familiar with all the details, let me tell you in today's program exactly what the casualty lists were by the vessels. Aboard the American flagship, the Saratoga, which we hope to have a replica built in 2014, There were 28 people killed and another 29 wounded. Aboard the Eagle, 13 killed and 20 wounded. Aboard the Ticonderoga, 6 killed, 6 wounded. Aboard the Preble, 2 killed, no wounded. Aboard the Borer, 3 killed, 1 wounded. On the Centipede, 1 was wounded. On the Wilmer, 1 was wounded. That's a total of 52 killed and 58 wounded. I might mention a few facts about the Battle of Plattsburgh for those of you who may not be familiar with them. This is the Battle of Plattsburgh written by the Plattsburgh Centenary Commission. I'll read only portions of it as we make our trip back to our mooring in Plattsburgh. On Sunday, September 11, 1814, at 20 minutes past 11 o'clock in the forenoon, the United States of America became established as a world power. Among the events which compelled such recognition, none is more important than the decisive naval victory by Commodore Thomas McDonough on that fateful day on the waters of beautiful Lake Champlain at Plattsburgh. No other naval battles in our history have had more profound effect upon our country's destiny. The influence it's exercised by America in the world's progress in large measure may be traced to it. There was heroism also seen during our struggle for independence as well as in later days, which served to show mankind what could be achieved by the individual inspired by patriotism and struggling to establish human rights as conceived by the forefathers of this republic. It goes on to say the British fleet, which was superior to the American squadron, consisted of 16 vessels, carried 95 guns, and had about 1,000 men. The American flotilla consisted of 14 vessels of all classes, carrying 86 guns with 882 men. Fire was opened by the Americans. It was returned by the British Confiance, or Confiance if you choose, but not until after she had come to anchor 300 yards from the American line. Her first broadside killed or wounded 40 men. But McDonough was able to swing the Saratoga around to bring her port guns to bear upon the Confiance. This vessel also suffered severely. She lost her commander, Downey. Those of you who were with us for a very impressive ceremony a couple of days ago at Riverside Cemetery in Plattsburgh know that that ceremony was held over the grave of Commander Downey. The British lost 200, including prisoners. The Americans killed or wounded totaled 112. The British lost all but 20 of 95 guns they brought into action. And as you may have heard several times, this young commander, McDonough, was twice knocked senseless during the battle. Those of you who may have been around the McDonough Monument over the last few days of this celebration realize that the concussion of an 8-pound or a 16-pound cannon is tremendous, even when it's not firing actual cannonballs. So you can imagine what the shock waves might have been when they were sending and receiving hundreds and hundreds of pounds of those cannonballs every time these ships volleyed. Secretary of Navy Jones to Commander McDonough, September 19, 1814, and I quote, "'Tis not alone the brilliancy of your victory in a naval view, but its important and beneficial results that will fix the attention and command the gratitude of your admiring country." And it certainly has all these years and will continue to do so. I would also like to mention, while we have an opportunity, some of the area markers noting other military action. Halsey's Corners, for example, September 5th, 1814. That's where Captain Leonard's light artillery and the infantry and militia under Major Wool briefly but stubbornly resisted the heroic advance of the British. and that was erected by the Plattsburgh Institute, September 11th, 1896. You'll see that at the corner of North Beekman Street and Boynton Avenue in Plattsburgh. And the one at Culver Hill, September 6th, 1814. That's the spot, or very near the spot, where Corporal Stephen Partridge of the Essex County, New York State Militia fell. Also, Brevet Lieutenant Colonel James Wellington and Ensign John Chapman of the 3rd Foot British Army. And that was erected by the Plattsburgh Institute, 1894. Located at Route 22, 3 miles north of Boynton Avenue, near the old county home on the west side. I would also like to mention Dewey Tavern. For those of you who are regular viewers of Our Little Corner and similar programs, you know that we hold that property in high regard because many British and American soldiers were at that tavern before and during the time of the Battle of Plattsburgh. And at one point, a few days before the battle, there were 7,000 soldiers encamped there. In a cemetery almost directly across the road and not far from the present Northeastern Clinton Central School, which we would like to locate sometime. Most of the graves are not evident there at this moment. The gentleman who presently lives in Dewey Tavern was plowing for a ditch about 4 years ago, and as a result of that plowing turned up a coin which he showed us the other day, and it's a 1 cent coin, United States coin from 1810. A very significant find indeed. Almost precisely where we're traveling right now aboard the Juniper, there are remnants of the Battle of Plattsburgh in the War of 1812, and right around the area where the anchor was found from the British flagship, the Confiance or Confiance, there is what Captain Frank Pabst calls a debris field. And around that debris field, there are liable to be many other cannon from that boat and various other things representative from the Battle of Plattsburgh. We're proud to have brought many things to the surface in the last few years, and believe me, by the time the Battle of Plattsburgh's 200th anniversary rolls around on September 11th, 1914, and the year 2014, 200 years hence, we will have a wonderful museum. That museum is expected to take up at least 1 floor of the old stone barracks built in the 1800s on Plattsburgh Air Force Base. And I wouldn't be surprised that by the year 2000, September 11th of next year, that at least a part of that museum will be open to the viewing public. At least that's the dream. So that's a part of our celebration, and we'll perhaps interview more people as we approach shore aboard the Juniper. You know, it's always great to see familiar faces on board the Juniper, but every now and again we see people that look like we should know them.
And you should know them, darn
Yeah,
it.
we should. Now, what's your name again?
Rustin Swenson.
And?
Maisie Swenson.
And you live where?
Shoreham, Vermont.
Wow! What brings you over here today?
This boat right here. No, we drove over here for the commemoration. We came first Thursday night for one of the lectures, and we came back today for the rest of the activities.
It's been so much fun.
Oh, it has. Really great. Really
By the
great.
organization and by the way everything went here.
They're working toward the 200th anniversary of the Battle of Plattsburgh in 2014. I hope we're all around to celebrate it.
Well, I think they're well on the way as far as building the enthusiasm. I see so much enthusiasm in the crowds, in the organization,
It's
both.
got hometown flavor to it.
Does it really?
Yeah.
That's what we like so much about it.
Well, we noticed like at the Kent the Lord House, most of the people that came that were from Plattsburgh, they didn't even know the place existed before today, right? And all of a sudden they're
Isn't that great?
discovering it.
Yeah, it
We've
isn't
been
put
coming
on.
here for 20 years. We always come back to Plattsburgh. It's a great place because of the historical significance.
We like it on your side of the lake too, and you come from a beautiful location in Vermont.
We do. We don't come for the malls. We come for downtown Plattsburgh.
I love it. Tell us a little bit about this. Isn't there some connection with the house that you live in that we ought to know about?
Yes, you ought to know about it. I own the General Samuel Strong House in Virginia. General Samuel Strong was commissioned by the governor of Vermont, Governor Chittenden, to head up a group of militia, about 2,500 men, And he ultimately wound up serving with Maycomb here in the defense of Plattsburgh. And his men were instrumental in routing the British. And General Strong's house, I own the house in Virginia. That house was the site of McDonough's winter overnighting in Virginia. When they were building the fleet, they stayed in Virginia, and they often met at the General Strong house for dinner, so they dined in the house.
Isn't that great?
So there
what
is
a great story.
It's exciting, yes.
How did you happen to get that place?
Well, I studied architectural history and architecture, and I knew about the house before I moved to Vermont in 1980. And I was just driving down the street. I saw the house for sale, and the next thing I know, I was indebted for life, and I'm still indebted here. But
they say houses can't call out to you, but sometimes they do.
This
don't
house,
they?
I almost caused an accident when I saw the house, and we've been struggling to restore the house. We haven't made very much progress. We haven't had as much support locally as you're having here with this activity. There's almost no local support at all, tragically.
It's very difficult.
It is.
If you can't get somebody influential behind you, some group,
That's right.
or preferably the state of Vermont.
Well, most of the emphasis in Vermont now is commercial. It's building up business and more business, and there's not very much interest left except for token interest in the historical and in the tourist benefit of the historical aspect. Like I was talking to some of the people here about the potential for tourism with this commemoration. If that's well promoted, you're going to have thousands of people here. And that's really what's great for the economy, and that's a natural attraction. It doesn't have to be manufactured. It was made 200 years ago.
The Delord, is it Delord House?
The Lord House.
I mean, that's intact, and they're so wonderful, an example of history, and it's been preserved by the people. We heard that it was up for auction, including the contents, and none of the people in town would bid on it, and the woman was...
Allow the widow to get it back, right? So, I mean, it's terrific.
I mean,
amazing.
that's an incredible community effort.
We don't have too many museums on this side of the lake. That's one that we're very, very proud of.
I've been going there for 20 years. I always go back to the Kent Lord House.
It's very significant in the Battle of Plattsburgh, as you know, because of its location and the people that were there during that battle period.
And everything is intact. Everything that's in there belongs to the Kent Lord family.
Precisely.
The Clinton is it the Clinton County Museum?
Clinton
County Historical Museum, which is
I'm a member of.
which
There's some marvelous engravings there of the battle and of McDonough and the other man that was over
Maycomb?
Yeah, was in charge of the land
that
forces.
museum, that's a beautiful building too, but that will be moving because
Moving the structure?
no, they won't be moving the structure. They'll be moving the historical museum to a building that was donated to them. A good friend of ours died just a short time ago and gave her historic house not too far from the Kent Lord House to the county museum, and they'll be moving it lock, stock, and barrel.
Is it a larger house?
It's a much larger house, and it's really, really a classic house. That's connected with Peter Saley, who's one of our great historic figures on this side of the lake. So
How far is it from the Kent Lord House?
it's not more than a block away.
That's great.
That's wonderful.
We just love that location of the Kent Lord House.
One more reason to bring you back.
That's
Yeah,
right. We'll be back
definitely.
next year.
Definitely.
Have you yet climbed to the top of McDonough
Well, it was
Monument?
too much of a waiting line. I've climbed the Statue of Liberty once, but
Did you?
Yeah.
If you did that, we know you can make the monument.
we're going to save that for the next time.
Thank you so much for joining us in our celebration.
Yeah.
Come back again
Get
anytime.
the word out to Vermont.
Thank you. Well, you know, it's one of those delicious moments that you don't want to see come to a conclusion. Celebrating the memory of a very significant battle here on Lake Champlain and watching the North Country actually get enthusiastic about its history. As you heard a Vermonter just a few moments ago, he's congratulating us for getting excited about history. It's something that we've tried to get people to do for a long, long time, and now it's finally happening. It's just wonderful. This is the last segment of our Battle of Plattsburgh material for 1999. For the sake of our regular viewers who've seen all of it this year, we just want to tell you that we did some things we haven't done in the past. We tried to cover a few different angles that we hadn't covered in the past, and so as a result, we didn't we didn't take in all the reenactment and all the historical events that were taking place around the city of Plattsburgh that we have covered before. We hope we've given you a little bit of an education. We hope we've whetted your own appetite so that you would get involved with the Battle of Plattsburgh Commission, with the committees that will be busy working toward next year's celebration, excuse me, and that 200th anniversary coming up in 2014, because if you feel like we do that this is something to get excited about, show your excitement. If you have any talents, whether it's helping to build boats and they expect to build a 60-footer maybe by next year, or just in the planning stages. If you attended some of the events this year and you have opinions about something that could be done just a little tiny bit better, please don't hesitate to let the people know. You can enjoy the company of those people involved. They meet on a regular basis, and I'm sure your input will be appreciated. Our special thanks to our good friend, Captain Frank Path of the Juniper, who's always there to promote history in the North Country. He even let us come aboard his craft last week during a tremendous rainstorm when they launched the replica of the bateau, and to keep our cameras dry. And then we did an interview with Frank after that part of the event was over. Our special thanks to all the member of the service organizations that showed up here today for this occasion, to Lita Kelly for her beautiful patriotic songs, which always bring a tear to my eye, and to all the folks who helped us celebrate this great occasion. It's been a tremendous weekend, and the next one is even going to be bigger and better. And who knows where we're going to be next time for our little